Moving into a second decade is hard for any band. Normally, all the youthful energy that made them exciting in the first place has disappeared. They can continue doing what they were doing, usually with diminishing returns. Or they could break up like the Beatles did. But the key is to try something new, to evolve, to grow up. So entering the 90s, R.E.M were all about change. Bored of being just kings of college radio, they set their sights further afield. No more loud electric guitars, no more mumbling. Now creating songs about love and nostalgia and shiny happiness. And there was a whole lot more mandolin. The formerly cryptic Michael Stipe was now bearing his soul. Maybe he said too much, maybe he didn't say enough. This is the story of R.E.M breaking the mainstream and reshaping the 90s in their own image. R.E.M's sixth album, Green, was released in November 1988. The previous year, Document had been their highest-selling album yet, platinum in the US, and their fifth album in a row that had sold more than the album prior. As an independent band, they managed this with their tireless touring schedule. In 1984 alone, they'd played over 100 shows in Europe, Japan, and the United States, trying to win over the world's indie kids and college radio DJs. The key weapons at their disposal: Peter Buck's gently chiming guitar, and frontman Michael Stipe's cryptic lyricism and guarded voice. But you can only jangle and mystify for so long before it gets boring. They were now signed to major label Warner Brothers, a decision that drew calls of sellout, but were tempered by other college rock bastions, the Replacements, the B-52s and Husker Du, already having signed to the label. Back again with producer Scott Litt from Document, Green saw R.E.M continue with that album's line of thought: bigger production, shinier hooks, and less opaque wordplay from Stipe. By this point they had gone from a band who would rather submit a short story than a lyric sheet, to printing the actual words to their songs on the sleeve for the first time. On Green they did so for a single song, World Leader Pretend, a tribute to Leonard Cohen, using war metaphors to describe one's inner battles.
I recognize the weapons, use them well.
Pop Song 89 and Stand showed the album at their biggest and shiniest. Stipe claiming Scottish indie kids, Orange Juice, as well as various novelty kids TV themes and bubblegum pop songs as calling points.
Super puff and stuff.
Yummy, 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 I got love in my tummy and I feel like I'm loving you.
Opener, Pop Song 89, was named not as a vision of pop's future, more that it just happened to be the 89th R.E.M song on record.
Hello, how are you? I know you, I knew you.
Its chorus an ironic deflection of the overt political stance of their previous album.
Should we talk about the government?
Not known for his hot leads, Peter Buck provides a wah-wah solo on Stand. He purchased the pedal the day of recording, decided not to rehearse, and his first ever inexpert use of the pedal is the one on the record, the result driving his bandmates to tears of laughter. Lyrically, the song alludes to being blissfully unaware of your surroundings, in familiar places. Talking about the song, Stipe gave the example of being surprised that there was a parking lot alongside a route in his hometown he'd walked for the last 7 years.
Now face where, think about the place where you live, wonder why you haven't people.
There's these big dumb songs on the record, and I really enjoyed doing those. Pop Song and Stand are just like big dumb heads rolling around. The guys had the music in the works, and I just thought, God, this is the stupidest music I've ever heard. It takes a great deal of courage to write a really stupid song, but those guys did it, and I really admire them for it. I really think it was great, and I wanted to match that with a lyric or voice that was equally as stupid, but really kinda great. Elsewhere, Orange Crush let their political colours show.
Got my spine, I've got my orange crush.
An anti-war song, it gestures towards the use of chemical warfare in Vietnam, in particular Agent Orange, and the horrific after effects of its use.
Now it's time to serve your conscience overseas.
Despite that, the title, the track being mostly all chorus, and its perky power pop nature led many to think it a lightweight pop song about a sugary soft drink. Their first top 30 single in the UK, Top of the Pops presenter Simon Parkin came to that exact conclusion. Green would be released on the day of George Bush's presidential election, signalling 4 more years of Republican rule, the Gulf War just around the corner. The album was there as a healing balm, designed as an uplifting counter to the continuing darkness. Though Green's title had a breadth of meaning, most obviously a link to Stipe's environmentalism, some dissenters, pissed that the band was now signed to a major, and no longer just their band, tied the title to the only thing they thought the band cared about: money. By now, R.E.M. were playing arenas, and finding it hard to connect with their audience, especially when their audience had shifted dramatically. I would look out from the stage at the Reagan Youth. That was when R.E.M. went beyond the freaks, the f***s, the fat girls, the art students, and the indie music fanatics. Suddenly, we had an audience that included people who would have sooner kicked me on the street than let me walk by unperturbed. I'm exaggerating to make a point, but it was certainly an audience that, in the main, did not share my political leanings or affiliations, and did not like how flamboyant I was as a performer, or indeed a sexual creature. And I had to look out on that and think, well, what do I do with this? According to drummer Bill Berry, they burnt out halfway through their 10-month Green World Tour, going through the motions for the rest of it. By the end, Stipe was rail thin and running on fumes, giving himself a disaster of a haircut that mirrored his state of mind. And it hadn't really done them much good career-wise either. Sales for Green were a bit of a disappointment. It continued the trend of selling more than the album before, eventually going twice platinum, and even managed a US top 5 single with Stand. But considering that they'd just been signed with an advance estimated at about $10 million, from Warner's point of view, R.E.M. might have seemed like a bad investment. Leaving the 80s, R.E.M. decided to break out of their cycle. After 6 albums in 5.5 years, touring constantly and facing larger and larger venues, the band needed to switch things up for their own sanity and well-being. So after the Green Tour wrapped up in November 1989, R.E.M. took a year off from touring, and really took their time with their next album, taking full advantage of their major label backing. Sometime midway through 1990, they started jamming on ideas, before then teaming up with Lit again, and heading to Bearsville Studios in Woodstock, New York. What was immediately obvious with these new songs was that Peter Buck had grown bored of the electric guitar, was sick of being loud. So instead he came to these sessions armed with either an acoustic, or the mandolin he had bought in New York a few years earlier. And overall it gave the album a quieter, more laid-back sound. Buck wasn't the only member expanding his sonic palette. Berry, normally on drums, played bass on the drumless tracks Half a World Away and Country Feedback, and bassist Mike Mills took on piano, keyboards, and harpsichord. However, perhaps the most daring role switch was Stipe. Tired of being seen as the socially conscious voice of a generation, he instead tested himself with a clutch of songs about love, in the aftermath arguing vehemently that none of them were autobiographical. I wanted to avoid pigeonholing myself as a political writer, so I decided to write an album of love songs. I'd never written an outright love song before, but this record is about love and memory and time. 3 things that, for me as a songwriter, are pretty new territory. Being Stipe, they generally weren't direct falling over myself in love songs. Me and Honey outlines the emotions of an unexpected pregnancy on the father-to-be.
There's a fly in the honey, baby's got a baby with me.
itself a gender flip on the 10,000 Maniacs song, Eat for Two.
I eat for two, walk for two, beer for two. Now,
What about me? What about me?
The mostly spoken word, belong, deals with a mother trying to defend her child from an unstoppable monster, most likely a metaphor for mass media.
She got up from the kitchen table, folded the newspaper, and silenced the radio.
Stipe's voice having the cold detachment of a radio news broadcast.
She held the child and whispered with calm, belong.
The jangling Mills co-written Near Wild Heaven ruminates on a doomed relationship, neither partner having yet ended it.
We hold each other. There's a feeling that's gone.
While the mournful country feedback Stipe described as the last sentence at the end of a particularly bad relationship.
This flower scorched, this film is on a maddening mood.
For the latter, Buck had a circular sequence of chords. Berry added bass and tambourine, Mills funereal organ, and Athens producer John Keane playing swooning, forlorn pedal steel. Stipe's stream of consciousness contribution was pure instinct. Michael came in the next day and scattered the words.
Self-help, self-pain, yes, psychics, fuck off.
Usually he has pretty concise words. We get to look them over. We'll say, repeat this, pull this out, maybe change this line. With country feedback, he just had two little drawings on a piece of paper, an Indian head and an arrow, I think. And he just kind of shouted.
Crazy what you could have had, I need this.
The album's opener wasn't about love, more disgust at the state of US commercial radio. A well-worn subject and a slightly more nuanced take than the Smiths had on Panic.
Sing song on the radio makes me sad.
Radio song called back to Fables of the Reconstructions Can't Get There From Here, and it's anxious, Gang of Four style punk funk.
Hey, hey, hey.
Additionally, the band brought in Boogie Down Productions' KRS-One to deliver the Stipe-penned rant with a bit more self-assurance.
Now our children grow up prisoners all their life. Radio listener!
KRS wasn't the only guest vocalist on the album. Fellow Athens-based college rocker Kate Pearson from the B-52s supplied additional vocals on 4 tracks, most famously on Shiny Happy People. Shiny Happy People is perhaps the most controversial song of the band's career, a song that they have never played in concert, and one that Stipe especially has sworn off. It came from the same bubblegum brew of influences that spawned Pop Song 89 and Stand, but cranked to the nth degree. Stipe has stated it was written with complete sincerity. Supposedly, the lyrics were made so its vowel sounds force your mouth into a smile. He also told Kate Pearson it's actually about Chinese propaganda and their terminally joyful citizens.
There's no time to cry. Happy.
Whatever the case, it's an ecstatic song that has a Chicago-esque middleweight time signature shift. Because the song is so relentlessly upbeat, there was nowhere you could really go with the bridge. We tried it a few ways and then I suggested 3/4. They said, that's kind of fruity, Peter, but I thought it was cool. It makes you think, well, what would we not put here? It gives the song a Saturday in the Park feel.
Slow motion rider.
I like the idea of different time signatures, and we never really do it that much. Released as the album's second single, the video for Shiny Happy People features Stipe and Pearson in the guise of Dayglow children's TV presenters. Everyone is dancing, everyone is so very merry. apart from Peter Buck, who is supposed to be upbeat, but is obviously having the worst time. It would end up being the band's biggest hit so far in the UK, a number 6 shocker, and score them another top 10 single in the US. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to talk about the album's first single. When not touring, Peter Buck often sat in front of his TV, with a nature show or baseball on, the sound off, and mindlessly strum away. Losing My Religion began life in one of these sittings, as he was getting to grips with his mandolin. The instrument had appeared on 3 tracks on Green.
Run a carbon black test on my jaw. Tell me what it's like to go outside. All you hear is time stand still and travel.
But he hit his peak with the instrument here. I hadn't been playing it that long, and didn't play very well. I still can't really. I only pick it up to play Losing My Religion. Reflecting on his melody, he claims he might have been subconsciously influenced by Ryuichi Sakamoto's theme for the 1983 film Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. After presenting his doodle to his bandmates, Mills was initially stumped on how to approach the track bass-wise, before asking himself, what would Fleetwood Mac's John McVie do? Fleshing the song out, former DB's guitarist Peter Holtzapfel would join on acoustic guitar.
It's bigger than you are not me.
Following the rest of the album's themes of love, time and memory, for Losing My Religion, Stipe dove into obsessive, unrequited love. The person on the periphery, overthinking every little interaction with their crush.
Links that I will go to, distance in your eyes.
Stipe himself compared the song to The Police's Every Breath You Take, a fixated stalker unable to let go.
Every move you make, every step you take, I'll be watching you. Trying to keep an eye on you, like a hurt, lost and blinded fool.
But if you can forgive another Smiths comparison, Losing My Religion is their How Soon Is Now.
So you go and you stand on your own, and you leave on your own.
A ballad for the introvert, the one in the corner.
You go home and you cry and you want to die.
But less mournful at their loneliness, more frustrated. Stipe insisting that its title was drawn from an outdated Southern expression for being pushed to your limits.
That's me in the corner, that's me in the spotlight, losing my religion.
Being that he was the one singing this song with so much humanity and honesty behind its words, listeners saw Stipe as the song's protagonist.
I'm choosing my confessions.
A less than candid personality in interviews, there did seem to be parallels.
Oh no, I said too much.
But one lyric specifically seemed to point towards him and his unease as the centre of attention. A lyric that he'd rewritten at the last moment.
I changed one lyric. That's me in the corner. That's me in the kitchen. So what I was pulling from was being the shy wallflower who hangs back at the party or at the dance and doesn't go up to the person that you're madly in love with and say, I've kind of got a crush on you. How do you feel about me? So I changed kitchen to spotlight. And instantly, of course, the song became about me, which it never was, I don't think. I mean, I'm pretty self-aware.
This 4.5-minute minor key mandolin-led song, without a proper chorus, wasn't the obvious single in 1991, or really any year before or since. And yet, despite Warner's hesitance, Losing My Religion was what R.E.M. pushed as the album's lead single, released in February 1991.
I thought that I heard you laughing. I thought that I heard.
They figured that its oddness would get listeners interested, and then their second single would be the chart climber. However, in June it got to number 4 on the Hot 100, their best ever charting single, vying for space amongst Paula Abdul, Extreme, and Michael Bolton.
Hurry, hurry, lover, come to me. Push, push.
More than words to show you feel.
Love is a wonderful thing.
Oh yeah, I see it.
It was helped by its music video. Although it was only director Tarzan Singh's third, he was entrusted with a $100,000 budget to direct what seemed to be a make-or-break video for the band. Later directing movies like 2000's The Cell and 2006's The Fall, his treatment lent into the religion part of the song's title, seemingly a collection of Caravaggio tableaus brought to life. What ties it all together is Stipe's manic dancing as the song reaches its climax. The protagonist's frustration being channeled through his bizarre, dance as if no one is watching moves. The promotional clip also broke a long-established rule for the band, that Michael Stipe would not lip-sync in music videos. But a video from the year before made him change his mind. The thing that changed him was he saw the Sinead O'Connor video, but Nothing Compares to You.
Nothing compares to you.
It doesn't have anything to do with what the song is about. You're looking at a person's face. His parent album, Out of Time, came out in March, and by May it was US number 1. It will go 4 times platinum in the US, and sell 18 million copies worldwide. Alternative rock had securely broken into the mainstream, R.E.M. succeeding where Husker Du and the Replacements had faltered.
Well, could you be the one? Could you be the one?
Ironically, given the album's first track, most of these sales happened due to its 2 main radio singles, and how much play they would get through 1991. Because of their non-stop touring in the 80s, and this more acoustic, somber sound on Out of Time, not lending itself to being played live, they just didn't tour the album, aside from a few select promotional shows. The feeling was that if they toured again so soon, the band might not survive. From the outside, it didn't look like R.E.M. did much for the 12 months after the release of Out of Time. But Michael Stipe met a former president. The rest of the band recorded a not very good album with 60s band The Trogs.
Nowhere a road you can hide your face. Nowhere a road.
And Peter Buck did a way better album with Robin Hitchcock.
So you think you're in love? Yes, you probably are.
The band also played MTV Unplugged. Additionally, they won 3 Grammys for Best Alternative Music Album, and Best Music Video Short Form, and Best Pop Performance by a Duo or Group with Vocal for Losing My Religion. Buck attended the ceremony in his pajamas. In June 1991, the band were back to writing for their next album, or at least Buck, Mills and Berry were. The 3 ending up recording about 30 demos in the Athens rehearsal space. What they concocted seemed to be a continuation of Out of Time. A lot of sad-sounding but transcendent, semi-acoustic, sit-down rock and roll. Stipe then later heard these demos, and chose which ones he felt he could give voice to. Overall, the mood was a bit more down than Out of Time, a tying theme being loss and one's own mortality, as Stipe approached middle age. It makes sense that the first track written for the album was an aching, nostalgic remembrance of summers past.
Night swimming deserves a quiet night.
Night Swimming had come about in the final days of recording their previous album. As an extreme rarity for the R.E.M. writing process, Stipe had written a set of lyrics first, without music in mind. Buck and Mills then auditioned music for Stipe's approval. The 2 rejected compositions that Buck submitted became Drive and Try Not to Breathe.
What if I ride? What if you walk? What if you rock around the clock? Need something to breathe. Baby, don't shiver now.
Then Mills played for Stipe a sentimental piano piece. After hearing it for the first time, Stipe asked for it again and sang along.
I forgot my shirt at the water's edge.
And that was it. Night Swimming was complete. Stipe reflecting on skinny dipping when he was a young man, who he had been.
To photograph on the dashboard taken years ago.
while also being slightly haunted by the passage of time.
These things, they go away, placed by every day.
Michael says the song is autobiographical, and I certainly remember that after shows back in Athens in 1980. Just when the band started out, we'd all pile into cars and go off swimming naked. It's something you can do in rural areas.
The recklessness of water, they cannot see me naked.
But it wasn't necessarily such an idyllic time, and some people back in Athens didn't end up leading such idyllic lives.
I thought I knew you I cannot judge.
This teary look into the past extends to the little references littered throughout the album, to the pop Stipe listened to as a kid. The midnight radio cruise of Drive tips its hat to the 1973 David Essex hit, Rock On.
Hey, kid, rock and roll, rock on. Hey, kid, rock and roll. Nobody tells you.
While the Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight, the most dizzyingly up cut on the album, steals but pays for the melody of the Tokens' The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Midway through the song's third verse, you can hear Stipe laughing at his inability to pronounce the Green Eggs and Ham author's name any way other than that of the Greek god. And the essence of Everybody Hurts was inspired by Nazareth's cover of Love Hurts.
Love hurts, love scars. Everybody hurts.
Another rarity, Most of Everything Hurts, had been written by Bill Berry, is form found in an irregular jam, with Buck eventually finding the template for his twinkling guitar part in Steve Cropper's work on Otis Redding ballads.
Oh, too long. The song when your day is night.
Is also, like In There Tonight, a drummer-penned song balanced atop a drum machine.
On your own.
When we wrote it, we all switched instruments. Mills played drums, I played bass, and Bill played guitar. And the demo was just the worst thing you've heard in your life. We were dropping beats, making wrong notes. We had to stop at one point, we were laughing so hard. But for some reason it really hit with Michael. So we rearranged it and cut it with a drum machine I bought for $20, made in 1970 and called a Univox Rhythmer. You push a button and you get samba, slow rock, and you can speed it up. Presented with that kind of music, Michael decided to keep it simple and straightforward. For the lyrics, Stipe composed a warm, understanding hug.
You're sure you've had enough of this life? Hang on.
Communicating to the most downtrodden teenage fans that it's okay, that everything will be alright. I'm here for you right now.
Sometimes everything is wrong. Now it's time to sing along.
As a further reference to 70s glam, its structure and Stipe's reassurances that you're not alone mirror those of the last track of David Bowie's Ziggy Stardust LP.
You're not alone. No, you're not alone.
With its simple and endlessly relatable sentiment, Everybody Hurts, beyond mere chart placement, would be the R.E.M. song that reached the most ears. Charity appeals love it, and R.E.M. are the kind of band not to accept payment for that kind of usage. As such, even those that have been completely out of the pop music loop for the last 50 years still know this song. The strings on Everybody Hurts, as well as Drive, The Sidewinder Sings Tonight, and Night Swimming, were arranged by Zeppelin bassist and 60s arrangement maestro John Paul Jones.
Feel like you're alone.
But throughout, the album took in a wider array of instruments than its precursor. Harmonica, dulcimer, clavinet, oboe, cello, accordion, and the Greek string instrument the bouzouki all made appearances. And for the fun fact fans out there, the piano on Night Swimming is the same one used on the coda of Layla. The last song added to the record was Man on the Moon, containing yet another glam rock namecheck during its first line. The song is a tribute to anti-comedian Andy Kaufman, lyrics about going wrestling and goofing on Elvis, referencing bits that the departed former SNL star would revel in.
Andy, are you goofing on Elvis too, baby?
Stipe had noted his new friend Kurt Cobain's copious use of the filler word, yeah. And so here, Stipe aimed to outdo him.
Charles Darwin had the law.
Built on a Flying Burrito Brothers slide guitar groove with added mandolin, the song was about 2 hours away from being left off the final track list. With 5 days left before the record was mastered, we had the track completely finished except for the lyrics. Michael was completely stumped, and he was getting quite irritated with all of us leaning over his shoulder. It was decided rather than drive each other crazy in the studio, we would take a few days off. Michael spent his time off driving around in the rental car with a cassette of the track, singing along for 4 days. When we reconvened, Michael walked into the studio, sang Man on the Moon once, and walked out. We were all stunned.
They put a man on the moon, man on the moon.
R.E.M. took an unhurried 13 months to complete the album, spread out amongst 5 different studios across the eastern half of the continental United States. They titled it Automatic for the People, the moniker taken from the catchphrase of a soul food restaurant owner from Athens.
What it means in terms of the restaurant, it means that you walk in, you get a plate of food, you say, I'd like some pork chops and greens, he goes, automatic. So it just means that, that he's got some food, it's going to be good, and you can have it. Well, here's a record, we think it's good, and you can have it. It's that sort of thing.
It hit shelves in October 1992, but as layered and beautiful as the album was, Peter Buck didn't think it was going to sell particularly well. My feeling was, not in a negative way, is that it was kinda a down record, with a lot of minor keys. And we were at the age where Michael was thinking a lot about mortality, so I didn't expect it to be a huge hit. Once again, R.E.M. did not tour Automatic for the People, but it wasn't a loud rocking dancing your heart out kind of album. It was more a lying on the floor in a dimly lit room, crying your heart out at your many regrets kind of deal. And because of how well Out of Time had sold, they didn't feel like they needed to. So again, they refused. This decision, combined with Stipe's slight frame and this new, very morbid album, caused rumours to swirl about his health, resulting in unfounded stories that he was terminally ill. Despite that, Automatic for the People sold very well indeed. Again, it eventually sold 18 million copies worldwide, 4 of those in the US. It was also their second #1 album in the UK, and stayed in the top 100 for 126 consecutive weeks. After it finally dropped out, it returned 2 weeks later for another 35 weeks. They were now very far away from appealing to just the freaks. In total, there were 6 singles released from the album, 3 being US top 30 hits, with only the beautifully woozy, accordion-addled Find the River failing to chart in the UK top 40.
Nothing is going my way.
In focusing on songwriting and not playing to massive crowds, they'd become pretty much the biggest band in the world, with only U2 ahead of them. But then R.E.M. were never the kind of band with that kind of ambition.
You say love is a tempo, love a higher love.
I think U2 tend to go for it more than we do. I had the feeling when I bought the first U2 record that they understood where they wanted to go a lot better than we did. They wanted to be the biggest band in the world. For us, fame and being on the world platform is a not really necessary byproduct of what we want to do. Making records and playing When We Want to Play. They were at a crossroads. They had been signed to Warner Brothers after becoming the quintessential touring band of the 80s. Their albums had incrementally increased in sales. It wasn't radio play that made that happen. It was pure hard graft on the road. Now they hadn't toured since November 1989, and yet Automatic for the People had sold more than all their ones from the 80s combined. Were they just going to remain a studio band from now on? Did they want to continue? Sometime in 1993 they met up in a Warner-owned safe house in Acapulco and talked through their future. And after some rehearsals with loud guitars again, they brought out Monster in September 1994. The following January, they began their mammoth 165-date Monster tour. It showed the world what they had been missing the previous 5 years. R.E.M. back on the stage again, seeing a million faces, and alternative rocking them all. Tragedy struck midway through the European leg, when Bill Berry suffered a brain aneurysm on stage in Switzerland, the band cancelling the rest of the European dates. They restarted the tour 2 months later for the US shows, and continued to the end. It would be the last time Berry toured with the band, after they decided against touring again for 1996's New Adventures in Hi-Fi, and him leaving the band in 1997, citing a lack of energy and a desire to retire to his farm. R.E.M. continued on until 2011, when they broke up just because they felt it was time to. No drama, no tears. And while they made some great music in those last 14 years, they would have perhaps had a cleaner, more bulletproof legacy if they'd called it quits when Berry did. In many ways, the 90s was a decade that R.E.M. made. As much as it can be attributed to Nirvana, it was really R.E.M. that brought alternative to the mainstream. In fact, Nirvana are one of the many bands and artists that made up the modern rock chart in the first half of the decade, that owe their sound and upwards mobility to the boys from Athens, Georgia. But while this was happening, R.E.M. were already beyond the jangling guitars and on to the next thing, off on another planet with mandolins and accordions and the piano from Layla, writing exquisite, heartbreaking songs about dead comedians, the last gasp of a failing romance, their sweaty, misspent youth, and being that quiet guy in the corner. At the same time, making sure that you know that everything will be okay, and that some people are just shinier and happier than others. They changed, they evolved, they grew up. Thanks for watching. So what's your favourite reference to 70s glam in 90s alt rock? Comment down below. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and why don't you share it with a couple of people? It really does help. As always, I'd like to shout out this month's new top tier supporters over on Patreon, Nutty Nutmore and Jay Cox. And thanks to everyone else that supports me. And I will see you next time for some real trash.